Hello viewers from wherever you're watching us from around the world. You're watching QTV, the Gambia's first private TV station, and we're broadcasting from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. My name is Aliou Cisse, and it's now time for your weekly State of Affairs program, which is aired every Tuesday at 9 p.m. and repeated on Sunday at 10 a.m. Like I said, this is your current affairs program where we discuss issues of interest in the country. And joining me this week in the program, I have Honorable Alaji S. Dabo, who is the National Assembly member for Brikama North constituency, and also the mandatory leader, and also the chairman of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly. Honorable Dabo, good to have you on the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Also joining me on the program, I have, of course, Ibrahim Sanyang, who is the Director of Procurement Policy at the Gambia Public Procurement Authority. Mr. Sanyang, good to have you on the program.
Thank you.
And of course, the big man himself, Mr. Fode Jaite, who is the Director General of GPPA. Mr. Jaite, good to have you on the program.
I'm pleased to be here.
And this week, we are looking at the much publicized public, of course, the Finance and Public Accounts Committee report on government audited accounts, and of course, funds on the COVID-19 relief package. We will look at that, but look at, procurement in the country, because it is important. I will start with Honorable Dabo, who is the chairman of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee. Honorable, you issued a bulk report with resolutions that came with some recommendations. I would like to know, what were the methodologies used in gathering this information?
Thank you very much, Mr. Cisse. Actually, the methodology in trying to do our work as Public Finance Public Account Committee, that is FPAC, one has to do with inviting the respective agencies and then institutions, their management, and then they present their audited accounts. After the presentation of the audited accounts, we review and analyze the Accountant General's report for the said institution or agency, together with our subject matter specialists. Of course, in our midst, the FPAC, we also have our experts from the Auditor General, the Director General or his representatives, and then the Gambia Procurement Authority, GPPA, the Director General or his representatives are also there. We review and analyze the reports. Then the representatives of the various institutions, they also respond to questions that we pose to them regarding the various audit queries surrounding the reports. And then upon completion of those analyses, we form an opinion surrounding their response. If there are instances where they could provide further evidences surrounding the various audit queries that's subject to the auditor's confirmation, where the auditors are satisfied. Yes, maybe at the time of the auditing, those facts were not available. But after, maybe they were available, and then at the committee level, they were able to present those facts. And then the auditors confirm we can clear off those audit queries before we start the process of writing the report. Where the queries stand, there is no further proof to the queries that were advanced by the auditors. The opinion of the auditors would stand, and that will form part of the report.
Quite interesting. We will get to the details of that report and the solutions passed by the Parliament after it was moved by the chairman himself, Alaji S. Dabo. Let me now bring in the Director General of GPPA and Mr. Sanyang. This question is going to both of you. Could you just give us an assessment of the public procurement system of the Gambia?
GPPA has a mandate. Our mandate is to regulate public procurement and monitor the public procurement system in the Gambia. Our mandate and the way we regulate procurement is through the regulation, of course, through the Act and the regulation, and of course through the prior approval system, where procuring organizations send every stage of the procurement to the authority for approval. And the monitoring, which is the compliance assessment, sometimes called compliance review, sometimes called the procurement audit, is where at regular intervals we go into the procuring organizations physically to examine, review their procurement transactions and report. And our report goes to the Honorable Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs, and also to the National Assembly, especially the head of the FPAC, and also to the Office of the President. So these are our traditional mandates. But then we have other mandates. Sometimes I call them the innovation mandate, and these are to authorize procuring organizations to conduct their own procurement. Section 12, subsection 3 and 4 gives us authority to assess procuring organizations. When I say procuring organizations, I mean government institutions. And upon assessment of their systems and the implementation structures, if we feel that they can handle their own procurement, we authorize them, we certificate them, and then they can do their own procurement without coming to the authority. And the other aspect of the innovation mandate is section, again, 12, subsection 8H, and section 41, subsection 2 and 3, again, authorizes the authority to develop a e-procurement system, sometimes called procurement e-market, sometimes called digital procurement or virtual procurement. It has so many names, but basically EGP, electronic procurement or electronic public procurement, to develop one for the procurement system in the Gambia, and also provide portals to government institutions to access the procurement system. Finally, the last part of it, which I sometimes call the emergent or the contemporary mandate, this looks at the domestic content in the country, and also the sustainability aspect of it, the impact on the environment and society, and also the MSMEs, medium, small, and micro enterprises, to develop a program to help them participate in public procurement. So.
Quite interesting. And Mr. Nyang, you as being the director of procurement policy, what is your function? What do you do?
Actually, let me again thank you for giving us the opportunity to come here so that viewers, Gambians for that matter, will know what we do as an authority. Now, I am first the director of procurement policy and operations. And as such, part of my mandate is to look into policies to ensure that these policies are in line with what prevails in other parts of the world. Because, like my Director General rightly said, we are responsible for regulation and monitoring procurements in the Gambia. To do that, we must be guided by policies. It must be guided. Our operations must be guided. It's not like doing things on our own discretion. We have to be guided. So my role as the Director of Procurement Policy and Operations is to ensure that the right policies are in place to effectively regulate public procurement in the Gambia. Now, government and taxpayers, for that matter, spend a lot of money goes into public procurement. Now, as at last year, the budget estimate is about 22 billion Gambian dollars.
Just on procurement?
No, the total.
Okay, total budget.
But then
okay, yeah.
Out of that, over 70% goes to procurement, which amounts to about 15.4 billion Gambian dollars. Obviously, this amount of money cannot go like that without being regulated. And to regulate that amount of spendings, obviously must go according to principles and policies that must have been clearly defined so that they guide our operations. So my department is responsible to ensuring that those policies are in place. From time to time we visit them and adjust them when and where necessary. So in short, that is what my role is as director responsible for policy and operations in GPPA.
And Honorable, haven't heard from both Mr. Jaita and Sanyang talking about the mandate of the GPPA and of course looking at the amount of money being spent just on procurement. As the chair of the FPAC, do you observe any compliance in terms of GPPA regulations?
Yeah, GPPA is an area, actually, if we are to check corruption in this country, should be supported so that effectively they can do their work. In doing so, for FPAC, we realize that manpower is a major problem as far as the operation of GPPA is concerned. A lot of institutions will not have their procurement audited on time at the time of presenting their audited reports. And then even those that have their procurement audited, a good number will fall short of the requirement. Compliance to have up to 60% or above is limited for most of them, especially when you come to institutions such as the councils. To have that requirement is a very difficult task. A lot has to be done as far as procurement is concerned. One, capacity in most of the institutions in trying to effectively do the procurement as required by the regulation to our understanding is lacking.
And Mr. Jaita, do you agree with Honorable that, I mean, there is still need for capacity and of course the manpower as well needs to be looked at?
Yes, I absolutely agree. The authority needs a lot of capacity building and a lot of funding. Procurement is a profession. It's a specialized area, and it's a profession like the accountants, a profession like the lawyers. It's a technical profession, and expertise, competencies are required to do the job. But as much as competence, capacity, and funding is required, as much as that is required, the institution, the authority also needs reform. There are also corruption, fraud, collusion, conflict of interest, coercive practice. All these are issues that we have to deal with, and we have launched lots of reforms to deal with these issues.
And what are these reforms, Mr. Sanyang, if you could just...
Before coming to the reforms, I just want to buttress on what Honorable said. As at now, we have over 200 procuring organizations, over 200. And each and every one of these institutions should be visited at least once a year. So if you have over 200 institutions, small mathematics here, we have 365 days in a year, including weekends and other public holidays and the like. So even if we are to visit one institution a day, it means that it must be over 200 days if we are to spend a day on each of the institutions. So this obviously requires a lot of manpower, showing that we should even have more than 2-3 teams on the ground. But otherwise, if we have only one team, it means that it's not possible, because assessing an institution should take not less than 1 week. That shows that the manpower at the authority is obviously not adequate to take care of all the institutions. That is in addition to some of the issues that my DG have already highlighted. Now, your question.
The reforms, what are the reforms that are taking place?
If you look at the evolution, of course, of the authority since it started up to now, we had an act, and it kept on changing, and today we have a new act. And the major provisions in this act include what? Authorization, as indicated by DG, so that institutions will be assessed, they will be capacitized, we provide training and the like, up to a point that we find their capacities to be adequate to handle their own procurement. Then we'll stand there and allow them to do their own procurement while we stand there and watch them. From time to time we review them, audit them, and then if we find weaknesses here and there, if they are major, of course, we have reporting lines where issues will be reported to the relevant authorities for measures. But again, the weaknesses will be corrected by providing trainings and the like. Now, the others, as my DG rightly said, they are very important. For example, you have the e-procurement, which is very important, because the e-procurement will minimize physical interaction or direct interaction of stakeholders, which is very susceptible for corruption and the other things. So if stakeholders are not interacting that much, corruption is expected to be reduced. And
yes.
The other one is about, like he said, the sustainable aspect of it, where procurement will be very concerned about things that come to our country in terms of how friendly they are with the environment. When for example, constructions that we do are friendly or should be friendly to the environment. But the other one, another important aspect is the local content that he talked about, that we must also look in-house, the capacities that we have, so that whoever is coming to the country, stakeholders and the investors, must ensure that Gambians are employed. The reforms must also ensure that the disadvantaged groups are taken care of, like women, youth, and children, and even the disabled are considered in whatever procurement we are doing. Now, let me cite this example, this very building as an example. I'm not sure whether, if you have somebody with a wheelchair, will be able to access this very building. Do you have any provisions for that? Somebody with a wheelchair to come to this studio?
Not at the moment.
So these are the kind of things that sustainable public procurement will look at, to ensure that what you do is friendly to the people, is friendly to the environment and the like, so that even if you are constructing a building, you have to cater for the wheelchair people. And you have what we call the set-asides, for example, where special allocations will be set aside for disadvantaged groups like women, and just to empower them, to create employment and so on and so forth.
But now with all these gaps at the authority, I mean, is this the reason why, I mean, the authority is limited, or perhaps it's not doing things rightly? These gaps that we have at the authority, and it's good that you accept that there still exist some gaps that need to be fixed.
Yes, like I just said, you see, the only way you can move forward, whether it's at the personal level, institutional level, or at the country level, is you have to accept the shortcomings, and you have to name them and point them out. Until you do that, the scene is not yet set to move on. So, like I've said, the Honourable Dabo just put it that, and I completely agree with him. The capacity shortfalls at the level of the authority, the funding shortfalls at the level of authority. These are all contributing factors. But again, like I said, the authority has to reform. Like I said, these corruption practices, collusion, conflict of interest, coercive practices, all these things have to be really dealt with. And like I said, you have to mention them, and you have to point them out, you have to point at them before you can really begin to devise a strategy to move on. And that's what we are doing.
And Honorable, I mean, with what we have just heard from these two gentlemen, it seems that's the reason why you are saying what your committee is able to reveal. I mean, it seems they are not able to do the work appropriately. I remember when you were laying the report, I mean, resolutions, you said this wasn't a witch hunt. This is part of your committee's oversight function, and so those duty bearers are held accountable for public resources that they are asked to take charge of.
Yeah, actually, that is the case, and then I must applaud both the National Audit Office and that of the GPPA for doing the wonderful work in order to check and combat corruption in this country. The thing is, if both institutions are capacitized, they have the manpower to do their work effectively, we can be able to do proper auditing and report to the National Assembly. Then thereafter, the National Assembly can also report to the appropriate authority for action. This is exactly what we are doing. It's not a witch hunt, but the efforts would be lacking if we don't address the situation of trying to capacitize, in particularly the Gambia Procurement Authority.
And talking about the situations, generally, Honorable, what did your findings reveal as far as the manner in which public funds are managed in this country?
I think there are most of the time we have management issues, and then which people are not fully trying to be compliant with regulations. It could be, I mean, ignorance of the regulation or deliberate attempts to ignore what you are entitled to do so, which obviously the auditors would not simply ignore. And one would say ignorance of a law is no excuse. If you have found one thing, you need to dance to the tune. People don't take responsibility the way they're supposed to do. And then, as the DG rightly mentioned, there are instances of conflict of interest on issues which we cannot ignore. And if you know very well the regulation is against that, those kind of things should be totally avoided. This is across the board, both from the executive right down to institutions and agencies. These are issues that should be addressed. We believe with the move that we are taking currently, if due diligence is taken towards our recommendations and then resolutions, I am sure in future reports you will see a lot of improvement.
And now we have known the problem. What do you think should be the short-term solutions to the current realities that we are facing?
Well, the short-term solution for now, we look forward to institutions and agencies cooperating with FPAC in terms of the recommendations and resolutions that we have, for them to make adjustments where they should. But where we have issues of fraud or mismanagement, I mean, action should be taken. People should be punished for that.
The people should be punished for that. I mean, millions of dollars is, I mean, it's quite interesting. Mr. Yere, let's now look at, I mean, the public procurement cycle. That goes through. How does it go?
The public procurement cycle, first is that government institutions, remember this is public procurement.
Yeah.
You know, there are also private procurement. We are concerned with public procurement.
Yeah.
Is that government institutions should develop a procurement plan, Section 29 of the Act, and this procurement plan should be in line with their business objectives and also the budget provisions. And this should be submitted to the authority, and the authority should make this available to the public on our website. Also, procurement is initiated by requisition, Form 100, right? And then there has to be the specifications. Procuring organizations or government institutions has to develop what they need, their requirements, their technical specifications and their terms of reference for the procurement that they want to procure. And then this will then go to the bidding documents, bidding document issued to the economic operators, and then, of course, you have the submission of bids from the economic operators. Then you have the bid opening. Then you have the evaluation and award. Then you have the entry into force of the contract, which is section, I think, 68 of the Act. So this is the summary of the procurement cycle.
And with these things, Mr. Sanyang, I mean, what assurance can you give that the office is incorruptible and, of course, fair in the way it handles this, of course, I mean, submissions?
Actually, like what my DG said, like I start with the procurement planning so that institutions must be able to clearly indicate what they wanted. So when that is done, it will come to what it will indicate. What they wanted, of course, will indicate the cost of what they want. And the cost of what they want will lead them to the procurement method that they intend to use. Either open tender, which of course is the default method and more open and more transparent, or other procurement methods like restricted tender, single source, request for quotation, and the like. But each of them have a condition. Apart from the open tender, all other procurement methods have a condition under which they are applicable. So if an institution requests for a procurement to apply for a procurement method, we look at the reasons why. We'll ensure that, for example, what DG said about specification. We have to look at the specifications and ensure that they are not tilted or favoring any supplier or contractor before they proceed. So once the green light is given for them to proceed, then the tender will be floated, and then we ensure all the procurements, the provisions like the bid security, like other conditions and the qualifications and so on. So when the offers are done, evaluation will be done based on what has been set forth in the bidding document. So we look at that and ensure that of course, the evaluation of other things are all correct. Now, if they are not, then we'll indicate or we flag it that we feel that it is not correct. So, of course, we will ensure that all the provisions indicated. You cannot use an evaluation criteria, for example, to evaluate a bid that has not been set forth in the bidding document. So these are all things that we look at to ensure that the system is not corrupted.
So, okay, Mr. Yeti wants to comment.
Yes. So your question is, how can we?
Yeah. What assurance can you give to the public that the institution, that's the GPPA, is incorruptible and is fair in the way it handles some of this bidding process?
Incorruptible.
Yeah.
The authority has a long way to go, has a lot to do. But like I said, the reforms are in place. But the way to, you see, corruption happens at two levels. It's either at the income receipt level or at the expenditure level. So you look at the B2B, that's the business to business. In this present day, most organizations receive their receipts, incomes from other organizations through either checking or through the banking system. So that is safe, or fairly safe. But there is still customer to business where physical cash is handled by government institutions. Of course, there is a bit gray. It's gray. So the other part of the corruption is expenditure. The director had just told you that a huge chunk of government, not only Gambia government, but all governments in the world, a huge chunk of government budgets are spent on procurement. And this is where the corruption is. So a lot of the corruption is in procurement. And that is why the authority is we are part of the government. We are a government institution. That's why the authority is very important for the government. The procurement system can be used as a strategic tool to generate lots of savings for the government. Government spends a lot of money on budgets, on debt debt repayments and so on. And so one of the areas where the authority, GPPA, can assist government is to save money in its procurement so that they have money to develop, to undertake economic development. But also, if the laws are followed, equal opportunities are accorded to all the private sector institutions to participate in procurement, they will grow. As they grow, they will employ more people. More people are employed, poverty will of course go down. This is what we need in our country. And these are the areas where the authority can help the government and the country to both for growth and development. So with regards to corruption, the simple thing is we have to follow the law and the regulation. We have the law, the GPPA Act 2022. We have the regulation 2023. Simply follow the law and the regulation. Public government institutions and economic operators must follow the law and the regulation. GPPA must also do its job of regulating and monitoring the procurement. And this is where the problem lies. The problem is the laws and the rules are not followed by sometimes are not followed by government institutions and the private sector businesses, but also GPPA is not doing its job in regulating and monitoring.
Quite interesting. That's for the JITE, Director General of the Gambia Public Procurement Authority. Well, viewers, you're watching QTV. This is your weekly State of Affairs program. We'll go with a short break, and when we return, the discussion continues. Do stay tuned.
Technology has always been at the forefront of our lives, and the way we use it has evolved drastically over the years. With the advent of 5G internet, we are entering a new era of technological innovation that promises to transform the way we live, work, and play. 5G internet is capable of providing data speeds up to 100 times faster than 4G, making it the ideal solution for streaming high-quality videos, playing online games, and downloading large files on the go. 5G internet is already transforming cities across the globe, powering smart cities, self-driving cars, and virtual reality experiences that were once thought impossible. 5G internet is also paving the way for Internet of Things, allowing for seamless connectivity between devices and the creation of a truly connected world. For the first time in the Gambia, QCell is bringing tomorrow's technology to you today with the launch of QCell 5G Internet. Get ready to experience the out-of-this-world wonders of QCell's 5G Internet. For more information, call 111. QCell. We innovate, others follow.
Hello viewers, welcome back from that short break. You're watching QTV. This is your weekly State of Affairs program. I'm your host, Aliou Cisse. And this week we are looking at procurement and of course the FPAC report issued by the Public and Finance Committee of the National Assembly. And my guest this week, I have Honorable Alaji S. Dabo, who is the chairman of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly, and of course for the JITE, who is the Director General of GPPA, and of course Ibrahim Asanya, who is the Director of Procurement Policy and Operations at GPPA. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Honorable, I mean, they talk about laws. I mean, you are the lawmaker. I mean, what can we do to improve, compliance with the law?
Well, compliance, I think just recently, last year, the new GPPA Act has been passed by the National Assembly and then assented to by the President. I have the belief that a big improvement has been made as far as the compliance laws are concerned. It is one thing to have the law, but another to implement it. So here, that's what matters. Implementation of the law, one, people should have the understanding of the law so that they can take full responsibility to ensure they comply and act as required by the law. As I said, in that, a lot of institutions, they lack that capacity, that is the knowledge in the GPPA regulations. Since we have the new act, a lot needs to be done to train them, capacitize them so that they know actually what they're supposed to do in terms of procurement. Then the other is enforcement of these particular laws. That's the responsibility of the law enforcement officers. If people are found wanting, we should not have that tendency of maslaha, try to compromise issues. We should try as much as possible and then whoever did anything wrong, you should be accountable for that. If you don't comply, and there are rules created for you to adhere to, and if all those procedures are exhausted, what the law says, that's what is supposed to apply.
And just last week, I mean, the Parliament passed 2 resolutions, one on the COVID-19 funds, the other one on the 2019 audited government accounts, including area councils as well. Your committee is very firm in ensuring that all those who are held responsible must provide explanation, and others are asked to refund those particular missing monies, or the IGP to launch an investigation within 90 days and report back to the committee. What has been the feedback so far from all those who have been found somehow wanting in this audit report?
Well, I think the first deadline is 25th.
Yeah.
That is today.
Yeah.
As for the COVID-19, as far as I know, we have not received any reaction in terms of communication to the committee or to the National Assembly on the COVID-19 resolution or the recommendations. And then for the government or institutional reports, the government account 2019, and then the audited reports of the institutions, the deadline for that, for some of the resolution points is 28. And then others we are up to end of October and so on. Well, for the government, I only saw communication to the National Assembly from the Ministry of Health to the Accountant General.
Regarding the frontline healthcare workers?
Not actually regarding the frontline. There is some that has to do with the Treasury, the Governor of his Treasury,
okay,
maybe at Brikama and elsewhere, requesting, the ministry is requesting for the Accountant General to do certain follow-up. And then if the Accountant General did do so, and that will be communicated to the Ministry of Health, and then adequately, they can also communicate that to FPAC. Notwithstanding, the first deadline is today, and the next one will be 28. By the deadlines, the committee will meet, and appropriately, we will report to the police for action.
What message do you have for someone who out there saying, committee is just making noise, they won't implement? I mean, some people might think, okay, they have been issuing recommendations in the past and nothing has come out of it. What message do you have for them?
Well, I think during the presentation of the report at the National Assembly, I did mention in giving my concluding remarks that it is not going to be business as usual. And if they think we are only laying the report just for the sake of reporting, they are mistaken. We'll come with strong resolutions, and these resolutions will be followed to the letter. I hope the government or the executive will give that political will, and I strongly call on the president to live up to that expectation. Let me re-emphasize that those who think that we are only reporting for the sake of reporting, they are mistaken. It's a different FPAC.
Well, if you are watching and you are one of those who have been involved, get prepared. Well, that's coming from the chairman, Alaji S. Dabo, and whoever knows him knows he never means his word. But then, Mr. Jatil, what is the role of GPPA now in the implementation process?
Implementation process of what?
The FPAC resolutions.
Our role there is to continue and to submit the compliance assessment reports of all the government institutions to FPAC, to the minister, honorable minister, and to also the president. That's our role in that one.
Okay.
And we've been cited actually to do that.
Like, how many government institutions submit their procurement plan to GPPA?
I do not know the statistics by head, but he's the head of the statistics department. Can you say something about
Actually, at the moment, I cannot say exactly how many institutions submitted, but it's about half of what the number that I told you, and that is about 200 procuring organizations submitted their report.
Interesting. And what are the methods? When you talk about public procurement, what are the methods?
There are lots of methods. In the 2022 Gambia Public Procurement Act, I think there are 11 methods that have been authorized for procurement. I can just name some of them. Yeah. Obviously, the best method is competitive bidding. That is the best one, and that is one we encourage really to be used. Then you have the single source, which is the worst one, and that one is discouraged by all means. Okay. Single source is the worst procurement method. Then you have the RFQ, request for quotations, you have the RFP, request for proposals. This is for services, consultancy, and non-consultancy services. Then you have many other procurement methods.
So are you surprised when you said single sourcing is the worst? I mean, when I read the resolution passed by the FPAC, I mean, of course, the Parliament, I mean, bullet number 4 said, I mean, the Secretary General at the Office of the President and the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Works must provide a written explanation to the FPAC on or before 28 September 2023 as to why the approval for a single source procurement for the rehabilitation works at the State House was sought after the completion of the work. Are you surprised?
I do not want to, like I said, I often restrain myself from commenting on particular cases, special cases, individual cases. I don't want to comment on that.
Why?
Because I don't think that is appropriate. My job is not to comment on particular cases. My job is to regulate the entire procurement system. So when a particular government institution is mentioned, I don't think it is my role really to go into that. But single source is not the design procurement method. It is the list design procurement method, like I said.
And Chairman, I mean, do you have any idea as to which of these methods procurement that most of these government institutions really use?
Well, as the DG said, actually for us, we also have our vote more on single source. Yeah. That is the area where one will say favorism and then corruption in one way or the other can be encouraged. The manner in which it is done is not to the advantage of procurement, the proper procurement procedures.
And what has been your experience with the way they conduct their bidding? I mean, is there any pattern that you think, it seems most of these government institutions are following the same pattern from your own experience as a chairman?
Yeah, well, what we rely on is the report that is advanced by the GPPA. And many a time, the query that they attack to institutions in terms of their procurement engagement has to do with their non-compliance with the regulations in one way or the other. And then key in this has to do with this act of single sourcing, and then the bidding, the manner in which they open and close their bidding also does not comply with the regulations.
And Mr. Jaite and Mr. Sanyang, I mean, so what does your office do in the event that a particular government institution is not complying with the laid down regulations?
Like I said, our job is to regulate and monitor, and we prepare reports, and we submit these reports to the Honorable Minister of Finance and to the Chairman of FPAC or to the National Assembly and to the Office of the President for review and necessary action. But we also have powers. The Gambia Public Procurement Act, Section 12, the Functions of the Authority, Section 13, Powers of the Authority, Section 92, Debarment, so we can debar a procuring organization or an economic operator from participating in procurement. Section 81, we can request the national
audit
to investigate a particular procuring organization and report and share the report with us. Section 81, we can request any law enforcement agency to investigate a particular government institution and report and report to us for necessary action. Section 94, the different violations that can occur in procurement, and Section 95, the penalties and sanctions that can be applied. All these are in the Act, and all these sections have empowered the authority to take action and ensure that procurement is in order.
And with all these powers, how frequent do you apply these powers? How frequent do you use it?
During my time, I've been at the authority for just over a year now. The director will talk about the previous ones, but during my time, we have taken actions. On one particular one is there was a huge procurement over 300 million, way above that, where we felt the procurement was not in order, and so we wrote to economic operators and to government institutions, citing certain malpractices that are going, and we actually rescinded the procurement. We cancelled the procurement.
And Mr. Sanyang, how widespread is in compliance government institutions or public institutions, I would say?
I think that was briefly mentioned by Honorable, that non-compliance, if you look at the overall performance of institutions, we have a lot of non-compliance institutions that are procuring and not being compliant with what the law provides for. So the percentage is very high. I cannot tell you exactly, I cannot remember exactly what percentage of institutions are non-compliant, but it's very high.
It's very high. And Honorable, your report also touched on the local government councils. It seems there's a lot of fix at the local councils as well.
Yeah, I think local council are the worst as far as institutions are concerned. In fact, the previous committees, because the 5th legislature, councils were not reporting on the FPAC. It was the local government committee that they used to report to. The 5th legislature found that the councils were not reporting to National Assembly, so they didn't know even where to start. They had to agree that the benchmark be 2019, where they can start to present their audited accounts to the National Assembly. In doing that, preparing their audited accounts, that is a problem for most of the councils. And in terms of time to provide the relevant documents, vouchers to the auditors at the right time, that is at the time of the auditing, also is an issue. Generally, councils need to be capacitized. They should have a unique format of account preparation, how they should be reporting their accounts to the Auditor General, and then even the procurement. That should be unique, but this is not the case as far as the councils are concerned. That's why this time around, we had decided that they need to go back and redo their accounts for 2019 and 2020 by the end of October, and then 2021 up to 2022 by the end of December.
And one of the resolutions also stated that, I mean, by July next year, they will adopt the FMI system.
FMI system, yeah.
Because it seems most of them, they're having a problem when it comes to record keeping. I mean, vouchers are missing and all those things.
Yeah, we hope with the FMI system that can be able to help to regulate that.
Well, let me now bring in Mr. Jaite here. Mr. Jaite, in the event that someone is aggrieved, I mean, how do you file a complaint to the GPPA?
Okay. Section 70 of the Act provides for aggrieved persons where a loss is suffered or potential loss or harm is to be suffered, can file an application to the procuring organization to review its procurement decision. The procuring organization shall respond within 10 days to the aggrieved economic operator. And if the aggrieved economic operator is not satisfied, then they can now use Section 79 and Section 80, that is challenge procedure. So they can file an application to the CRB, the Complaints Review Board, which is under Section 79.
Okay, there's a board.
Yes, there's a board.
Okay, good.
And the Complaints Review Board will investigate and revert with a verdict. The verdict is either they will dismiss the application based on whatever reasons they think in accordance with the law, or they will confirm the decision of the procuring organization, again, that has its own procedures, or they will overturn the decision of the procuring organization in favor of the aggrieved economic operator. So there are laws regarding that.
And Mr. Sanya, what is the minimum threshold that can come to your office?
Any procurement which is above $1 million should come to the authority for approval, prior approval. But that was with the previous dispensation. That is before the authorization. So that even at now, procuring organizations that are not or yet to be authorized will come to the authority at every stage of the procurement procedures when they are buying something which is more than $1 million and above.
Okay. And in the event, because many times people talk about value for money, I mean, these bidding processes, sometimes the quality seems to be lacking somehow. I mean, do you have the power to do follow-up on like contract execution?
Yes, contract management is there. But again, like we mentioned this earlier, is that the procuring organizations should determine their requirement, and they should have specification. They should specify what they want, because there's technical specifications and terms of reference clearly, unequivocally. And
do they do that? You said they should, but are they doing it?
Well, it's yes, they have to. I mean, that's part of the procurement.
But are they doing it?
They are doing it.
I think they are doing it. And this is exactly some of the things that we look at prior review, so that when they come with their submissions, they must have specified. And like I said earlier, we look at the specifications and ensure that they are in line with what the law provides for, and they are not favoring any party. But then when it comes to value for money, as you rightly said, the law provides, apart from the contrast committees should have a receipt and examination committees, for example. Contrast committees must have evaluation committees, for example. What is the role of the evaluation committees? These are the people who will look at submissions and ensure that they provide exactly what they wanted. And the receipt and examination committees will ensure that the right materials, if you specify for Dell, for example, the goods that are being supplied, ensure that they are Dell with all the requirements that you have indicated. So all this is part of course, if it is construction, you will ensure that the construction is done as specified.
I know we don't interrupt. Mr. Jati, you want to come in here?
Yes, and again, the value for money, Section 20 of the Act, which is principles. The principle of procurement, the law, or the Gambia Public Procurement Act, the law, the regulation, these are all based on the principles of procurement contained in Section 20 of the Act. And these are openness, fairness, transparency, competition, and deliver value for money. Basically, value for money means fit for purpose and sustainability.
So what does the law say about someone who is dealing with a particular company or business entity that's not registered with the GPPA?
In the previous Act, it is not a condition for participation. Okay. It was only a condition for evaluation and award. But in the new act, the Gambia Public Procurement Act 2022, is a condition for participation. So if you don't register, you cannot participate in any public procurement contracts.
Finally, Honorable, because time is up, I mean, do we need to amend any of the laws to be able to address all the challenges that have been highlighted here? Or you think the laws that we have is good enough to
as I said earlier on, for GPPA, last year, with the FAMU Act, and there are helped a lot in order to improve the procurement areas. And the National Audit Office also, we look forward to them to ensure how best they can also look into their laws and then do the necessary amendments. Well, National Audit Office, I believe they have their mandate. They should not only wait for the FPAC or the National Assembly. There are certain things that they can even forward it to the police for action before waiting for the National Assembly to take action and then do the needful.
Thank you so much, Honorable Alaji S. Dabo. Well, the conversation is quite interesting, but this all what times allows us for this week. I mean, like I said, our guests this week were Honorable Alaji S. Dabo, who is the National Assembly member for Brikama North constituency, and also the chairman of the Finance and Public Accounts Committee of the National Assembly. Honorable Dabo, it was good to have you on the program. And of course, for the Jaite, who is the Director General of the Gambia Public Procurement Authority, and Ibrahim Sanyang, who is the Director of Procurement Policy and Operations, it was good to have you on the program. Quite interesting conversation there, and then we get to know more what the mandate of the GPPA is and the challenges faced and the way forward. On behalf of everyone here at QTV, I thank you so much for watching. Do join us next week. Until then, bye-bye from me and the entire team.